Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Dennis Lagoe joining us. Today, we are going to talk all about hypnosis and all that he specializes in. And he does specialize in anxiety, which is something I feel since the pandemic. It has been heightened. Everyone, children, adults, adolescents, you name it. But he's here to talk to us more about the work he does and how he's helping so many people. So thank you. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Thank you, Jill. I'm fine.
Great. Well, pleasure to have you here. Would you mind just introducing yourself and company to our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, my name is Dennis Lagoe, and my company's name is Dell Hypnosis. And a lot of
Perfect.
people don't realize that it's a very, very effective way to treat anxiety, which is basically pretty much an underlying cause to a lot of different things, which is overeating, smoking, a lot of these other related problems. And so what I do is I work individually with people, find out a little bit about them, and we attack the problem together.
Beautiful. Well, I know you offer clinical hypnosis, specialize in anxiety, and we're going to talk about a lot of the problems you can help people with. But first and foremost, I think it's important for myself and your audience to get to know you. Currently, you're living in Ithaca, New York. Is that true?
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up and how you got here and walked down this path and journey. I know you were studying psychology, so give us your whole little backstory.
Well, I grew up basically in Fayetteville, New York, which is a suburb of Syracuse.
Yeah.
And like I tell people, I was never smart enough to leave. I've lived in the area my whole life. And because it's nice other than the winters, which you learn to cope with. But lately I've been looking at the snowbird thing, get out of town for the winter.
Yeah.
But basically, I went to Oswego State University, which is a local state school right up in
Hmm.
near Oswego. And then I studied further in the Air Force when I was took business courses and whatnot, and then got interested in psychology and I've been in basically I call it an independent contractor because I went into sales like in 1985 and up until I think 2004. Yeah. And enjoyed sales immensely because it's a lot of psychology. You really need to know people. And one basic premise that I've always adhered to is that you buy with emotion, then
It's
you
true.
justify it with logic.
Hmm.
So you do the same thing. I mean, otherwise we'd all have black four-door sedans, right? Just to get from point A to point B. You wouldn't need a Corvette or a Maserati or something. So you
True.
like that little emotional kick.
Yeah.
Just in observing people, um, I I took a family therapy course, then I took an abnormal psychology course. I think I took a child psychology, all graduate courses. And this piqued my interest in
Okay.
people like Jeannie Laborde or Virginia Satir. I'm kind of name dropping, and people
It's
that are
okay.
in the field know those names. Okay,
Okay.
like Bandler and Grinder, who developed neuro linguistic programming (NLP). So there's all these things that came together, and it just really got me interested and excited in psychology and in helping people. And because that's what I did basically for a long time, I had my own business selling hearing aids to old folks.
Wow.
And that led me to, because that was something when you see an 80-year-old man with a tear running down his cheek because
Ah,
he
how
hasn't
rewarding.
heard in 20 years, it just melts your heart. And things like
Wow.
that. So I knew I wanted to continue that after I retired because I'm one of these people. I retired at 55 and for about 6 months. And then I went back to work, doing but projects that I enjoy doing.
Oh,
And this
wow.
is something I took up in 2006. And just really, I learned all the traditional methods. So more about that later, but that's basically what brought me here. And then like I said, I sold my house in Syracuse after 31 years last year. And I've always wanted to live in Ithaca because it's a very progressive community. It's home of Cornell University, Ithaca College. There's a lot of people here. They're free thinkers. One of the first communes in the country that still exists today is right here in Ithaca.
Wow. I didn't
So
know that.
yeah, and just I visited here when I worked in Cortland. I had an office in Cortland with my hearing aid business and but whatnot. But and I've been down to Ithaca. I said, darn it, I'm going to go live down there. So I moved down here last September and I'm really enjoying it.
God bless.
Except this
Amazing.
winter, I'll probably go somewhere warm like Texas or California.
Well, thank you for giving us a lot of the background and about who you are. And I know clearly you're that person who reminds people to always follow your passion, never give up. And let me ask, so how did you discover hypnosis? And then tell us a little bit about your training in that. And then I want to know about how it all works and walk us through it.
Yeah, back, like I said, it's since 2006, so it's going on 20 years.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was doing actually some work as a psychic medium. So I'm not going to go there. But this brought me to working with people and working with their unconscious and for want of a better term, getting in somebody's head, okay? But you can only get in there as far as they'll let you go.
Mm-hmm.
And so without using a lot of cliches, I can start by saying all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You actually, when you're driving down the road and you're going to work, and all of a sudden you pull in the driveway and forget the last 20 minutes,
Yeah.
okay?
It happens all the
That
time.
every people have done that. You're
Yes.
hypnotized. They call it highway hypnosis. Okay. It's just a laser focus, like in a movie. It's a scary movie or it's sad. So you may feel like crying or cry, or it's happy, you're elated, even though it's just a movie. Your mind doesn't know the difference. Okay. It
Wow.
still brings out these same emotions. And what we do, a good hypnotist simply guides you through this process, okay, to access the subconscious or unconscious mind. I'm going to keep calling it the unconscious for consistency.
Okay. Okay.
But
Perfect.
a good hypnotist simply guides you through the process.
Okay.
Most people have no clue. All they think is Hollywood. I'm going to dangle the watch the watch, and then you're going to go to sleep, and I can make you cluck like a chicken, you know,
Yeah.
things like that. But that's old school. Okay. Traditional hypnosis, they say put you to sleep,
Wow.
suggest actions so that you were telling you what to do. You will quit smoking. It's a dirty, filthy habit. Okay. People don't like to be told what to do.
No.
So what I do, I use conversational hypnosis, they call it.
Okay.
It was developed by Milton Erickson. And again, a lot of people outside the field don't know that name.
Okay.
But
Oh,
here's a guy that was not only a medical doctor, he was a
okay.
psychiatrist, and he used hypnosis, all three. And when he was 17, he got polio and
Oh,
was bedridden. But what he did was he used the power of his mind to remember what it was like to move his arms and legs. And to make a long story short, within about 3 years, he was able to not only use because he was paralyzed too from the neck down,
okay.
but not only he was able to walk with a cane. And he contributed, I mean, he just said, and this was in the 20s, 30s, in the 40s, he developed this style of conversational hypnosis. And in a nutshell, what it does, because the problem is never the problem. Okay. If you overeat or you smoke or, you wake up in the morning feeling anxious or depressed. I mean,
Yeah.
I know there's reasons for that. I've had enough of that stuff happen in my life where it was easy to get anxious or go down, the rabbit hole of depression.
Absolutely.
But like they said, it's in your head. Okay. And like I think I said at the beginning, that emotion will override logic every time. So one example I like to use, I mean, what I like to say is, we'll find the true problem, the true issue. Okay. I'm going to help you find it for yourself. And then you'll come up with the solution so that then you'll embrace it. But then we have ways of testing the result. Are you really going to follow through? So, and again, probably 99% of the time it's effective. And you get once in a while, you get somebody for whatever reason, you just can't access it. But that happens it doesn't happen very often. Let's put it that way. And I really enjoy the work because I get people that call me back and say, gee, Dennis, I can go to work, get out of bed, or even in a relationship or marriage or things like that, where you need that because that anxiety just wears you right down. It wears you out. I mean, and I know I don't have to tell you stories about people that, the crippling anxiety. And even if it isn't, it's a pain in the neck to live with. So, we get through that and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the work immensely.
Well, thank you. And it's a pleasure having you here. And I just want people to know that the work of hypnosis, which is pretty fascinating, it could be done anyway, just like this over a Zoom, over a call, right? I mean, you don't have to be
Mhm.
in person for this. And you know what? I want to talk more about the people you're helping and some of these results that they can achieve. And specifically, I mean, I've heard of the weight loss, I've heard of the smoking, but there's so much more that you specialize in. I know that especially the anxiety, but I would love to hear some examples of how it's helping change people's lives.
Sure. No, I had one. In fact, I think frankly, more mature people. It's what do I want to say? How do I want to say this? It's easy
Mm-hmm.
um, once you find the cause. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's so simple. Like you tell people, well, why don't you just put the cigarettes down?
Yep.
Why don't you just not eat so much? Why don't you just wake up and put a smile on your face?
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds, but it's not
I know.
anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we usually can find an underlying cause. Okay. Because one type of hypnosis that I used to do, I won't name it, but well, I can, I guess. But you go
I,
back to three different areas you actually regress because regression is also a very important part of it, okay? But I never force anyone into a regression. Regression is where you go back to a time in your life, maybe
mm-hmm.
3 years ago, maybe when you were 6 months old, where some trauma occurred. And at that time, you were unable to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you were a 5-year-old, watch your mommy and daddy have a fight, something like an argument, something like that, and it upset you. Okay. You ever see a baby when mama cries, the baby cries.
Mm-hmm.
Mom's happy and cuddling her, that baby's just so even when you're a baby, when you're an infant, you sense these things. You're aware
Yeah.
of these things. And regression's good to a point, but not if you force it.
Okay.
Because this other style I used, we used to take people back at least 3 times
Wow.
and then talk about it and then bring that forward and say, okay, now you're an adult. You're a
Yeah.
grown up. You don't need to be there anymore because you're not 5 years old or 5 months old. Okay. You can deal with this now on an adult level.
Okay.
And granted, that did work to a degree. We would send them home with a CD to listen to, a recording,
Uh-huh.
and over and over again. Because after 21 days, you reinforce this, da 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 da. And again, like I said, it worked, but it was kind of tedious, kind of dragged out. And once I discovered this newer method, where it's strictly conversation, because the other thing is, see, we could be doing this right now, and I could simply ask you, Jill, how is it going today? And what's on your mind? What's bothering you kind of thing. And then you start telling me, and I simply listen for cues, for key
Mm-hmm.
words to repeat back to you. So then, you look up to the left. You ever talk to somebody and all of a sudden they look up here like this, or they look down here like this? That's an unconscious moment. They're accessing their unconscious mind to look for information
Okay.
because it's in there. Okay. Then you go back and keep using that to make, and I don't say make them, it's to help
Yeah.
them to access this particular memory or event. It's keeping them stuck. It's keeping them stuck where they are. And what you want to do is bring that out so we can take a good look at it in the light of day. And then say, well, how is this going to, change? What would you like? What would your life look like if it wasn't like X, Y, or Z, if you could do this instead, okay? And then have them tell me whatever it would be. I could get that job. I'd get along better with my partner. I would
Wow.
get, things like that. I could get out of bed in the morning and go, because I've been there and done that, okay? I've been there where I just didn't want to get out of bed in the morning,
Yeah.
so I can certainly relate to that. Um, and a lot of it was due to severe traumatic results or events. But then and I got over it myself, if you will. But you learn I can relate then why people are there and how I can help them to change that behavior. And you can because you see the answer. That's
Yeah.
that's
You
that's the
do.
crazy part. You know the answer.
But there's like a block where we don't really,
Something,
right,
yeah, yeah.
or
When it
we
comes
don't
to
really want to know, don't want to believe. How does that work? It's like there's something in
exactly.
our bodies, in our minds, in our souls that's blocking us.
Exactly. And that's why it's much more effective than me hypnotizing you and telling you, Jill, you're going to get up tomorrow, go to work, big smile on your face, have your cup of coffee, and you're going to be a happy person. You're not going to be sad anymore. You're not going to be depressed. You're not going to be anxious. There's
Yeah.
nothing to be anxious about, okay? You don't need to worry. But I'm telling you what to do. Do you like to be told what to do?
No.
Nobody does. Nobody.
No.
But if I can have you find a viable solution in your own unconscious mind and then implement it. So I like to use the analogy like a path in the forest. And what I'm going to do with that, it's a neural pathway, actually, is what it is in your brain. So when that time comes for you to either be anxious and depressed or to not be, okay, you're not going to go down that pathway anymore. We're going to put a stop sign there. And we're going
Mm-hmm.
to develop, you are going to develop a new pathway. I'm going to go this way instead. I'm going to go the way where I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to overcome this anxiety. I'm going to make it work. So, and it may take a little practice, but every time you're going to come to that joint or that fork in the road, rather, there's a stop sign there. So you take the new path instead. And pretty soon it just becomes a natural thing to do. But you've done it yourself. That's what I mean by testing. We'll test the results to make sure that you, in fact, believe it in your own mind. Okay. And the thing is, instead of going and not to knock traditional therapy, because, but you can, I know people, I've talked to them, 1, 2, 3, 5 years. They've been sitting in the chair for half an hour a week,
Yeah.
and they're still not any further ahead, you know, where this takes usually 1, 2, maybe 3 sessions.
Yeah.
We get results. That's what this is what part of what Milton Erickson developed. And he passed in 1980. And it's kind of like Beethoven or Mozart or Picasso, or, nobody appreciated what he did. In fact, a lot of other psychiatrists, put it down and said that's not
Yeah.
work. It's, um, you know, that kind of stuff. But over the past 40 years or so, there's been a lot of books written, and it's very, very effective. It's a very effective method, and people accept it. People, enjoy it, and I found it to be effective.
Awesome. I love hearing it. Thank you so much. And if you are just tuning in, I want to remind everyone we are here with Dennis Lagoe, and he's the owner at Dell Hypnosis and is really, loves what he does and clearly, helping you. And can I just ask specifically about anxiety, right? Because I know you're specializing in this, and I feel like since the pandemic, everyone's anxious, everyone's overwhelmed. But hold on. Do you also help with children and anxiety as well?
I do not.
Okay, so it's
I Yeah, only for a lot of different reasons, but and I know that's because some of my colleagues, of course, specialize in that, you know. But I don't want to like fragment myself. I feel I do a great job with adults,
yeah,
and
no.
um just I don't, and it isn't a cutoff like 16 or 18 or 21,
Got it.
It just seems my experience over the past years has mostly been with older,
Got
35,
it.
40. Not that I have done younger people, but it's just that's pretty much, my market, if you will.
Now, what are some of the most common things that are causing anxiety, would you say, in today's age? I mean, there's a lot of it.
Number one, social media.
That's something totally new. Yes. Well,
I mean, when you hear of
yes.
a high school student committing suicide because they were shamed on social media or whatever, I mean,
Ah,
that because I'm 71.
yeah.
That is just beyond me, even,
Mm,
but I understand children too, because until you're about 25, your frontal lobes aren't developed. That's why you do crazy stuff.
mm-hmm.
And that's why you could be so impressed by this kind of thing. And it affects everybody, though. It doesn't
Yeah.
just affect children.
Yeah.
Now the thing is scrolling, you know. I catch myself doing it sometimes. I'll go to look something up, and then a half an hour later, I've been looking at, I don't know what it is, sports cars or whatever they show you, and it's just crazy. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously there was anxiety and depression and things long before there was social media. But the idea, I firmly believe that exacerbates it to an intense degree. I really do. I mean,
Wow. It's, the pressures and of everyone looking a certain way and seeing all the positive, all the great. It's a lot of, it's just not all real. Yeah, I mean, you hear
right.
about suicides and people getting bullied on social media now. And like, I can only imagine the pressures, the peer pressure that go along with it, people commenting and doing. And I have a 10 and an 8-year-old, but they're not really on social media much, but they see their older cousins. And I see
Sure.
how it's affecting my niece who's 16, the pressure to look a certain way and be
Oh God,
thinner
yes.
and be with the makeup and this. And I'm like, what? So,
One
and
thing
now,
I want to touch on quickly,
sure.
go, Joe. Veteran suicide.
Ah,
People don't know that 22 veterans a day take their own lives. And yet now with the cuts at the VA, there's going to be, but this is something I think President Obama had mentioned it.
ah,
Think Biden, talked about it a little bit. But I just wanted to, because I'm a veteran, and when these men and women come home, obviously, they're not getting the care that
yeah.
they need, whether it's PTSD or whatever the case may be. So I have worked with a number, and I would just maybe open it right up to that because that is so, it just breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart that is an epidemic that's really not being addressed. It's really not being addressed. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but
No, no,
thank
it's
you.
so true. It was such a shame that there's, not more people out there helping those who have served, who are
Mhm.
suffering, who are in need, even those younger that return and they're not getting the jobs that they should have to support their families. It's just, I know my friend does something in the auto business where he helps hires veterans,
There you
and
go.
so,
Perfect.
which is
Great.
just beautiful because
Yeah.
it's like they serve, they do so much and they, they're just so intelligently smart and they can be trained in anything, it's just that breaks my heart. It does. Can I ask about the process of hypnosis, and how long does someone really need to work with you to fix, something that's going on inside?
Well, usually what a session looks like is I tell people leave at least an hour, maybe two, because I'll work with you as long as it takes. I don't just, set the clock and say, bing, your hour's up, we got to go.
Got it.
Especially if we're right in the middle of discovering something.
Yeah.
So it can last an hour or so. And then at the end, we'll see how you feel. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times people are like, hey, this is, da, da, da," but I'll see you again. So maybe 1 to 3 sessions normally.
Okay.
They can range from 1 to 3 hours. I've had them go crazy, but not usually more than, an hour, hour and a half. So I don't set a time limit. That's the key word there, though. That's the key thing. We work till the work is done. Let's put it that way.
Beautiful. And did you want to share a success story or two? We have just 3 minutes left in the show, just letting you know. I don't know how you kind of want to end off for us today.
Well, just one quick one. I had a woman who was 72 and she came in with a walker. And in the course of our session, she said I said, well, how do you know? How about this? And what about that? And she was having a couple of rum and cokes every night.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Yeah.
And her knees were, blah, 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 et cetera. Well, after one session, I didn't tell her to quit drinking. I just said, because that's not really,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't go into AA or anything like that. But if you have to have a drink every day, every night, even if it's one drink, I've been told that's an alcoholic. Okay.
Mm.
Well, to make a long story short, this was with the older brick and mortar style, but she had lost 30 pounds, stopped drinking completely, and was using a
Wow.
cane instead of a walker. So and she was getting around much more easily.
Oh my
Since
goodness.
then, I followed up with her. She's had knee surgery and now she doesn't even use the cane.
Wow.
She's lost the weight, kept it off. She's about 74 now, and she's very, very, very. I mean, I just was so pleased. It just happened. It was a family friend, so that's why I've kept her followed up, consistently like that. Because I do hear back though from people now and then, hey, Dennis, it's, a year later and I'm doing great. It's wonderful that it's so nice to hear back, although I don't necessarily track that, and I probably should. But I do have, more or less just how you probably do the same thing. You get immediate testimonials. Hey,
Yep.
it was great working with Dennis. I'm all set. Da, 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 da. But yeah, and I was able to get the job or go on the interview or talk to my mom or whatever, because
Oh
there's
my,
a lot of different things that that anxiety and depression and the like will
beautiful.
crash and, make your life a living hell if you let it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time here. Ecstatic that we got to know, you, and of course, all these amazing services that hypnosis can provide and to help so many. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jill. It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Would you mind sharing how we can contact you?
Oh, absolutely. It's a tough one. My email is my name, Dennis Lagoe at
Spell that for us.
gmail.com.
LA, spell it for us.
DENNISLAGOE, all lowercase at gmail.com. And you can call me. My number is 315-427-5031. That's in upstate New York, but I deal on Zoom. I have clients in the south of France, South Africa, the UK, California, just so yeah, don't hesitate to call because since COVID, everybody's been using Zoom and I find it quite effective.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you're doing. And I hope we get to connect again here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate it.
Ditto.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.